Mr. President,
I wonder if you will tell us what your grounds, your investigations of the Major General Ted Walker incident in Europe. If you will please tell us what grounds you found for relieving him of his command for allegedly teaching troops anti-communist doctrine.
When I saw the stories in regard to the things which had been said, or at least alleged to have been said in regard to General Walker, I called Secretary McNamara and asked him to investigate it. Secretary McNamara then, I believe, suspended General Walker, and my term may not be precise, pending a completion of the investigation, but no decision has been made in regard to General Walker until the investigation has been completed to find out exactly what was going on. I do not believe that Secretary McNamara took even that limited action, however, merely because he felt that General Walker was talking against the communists. That was not the grounds for concern. But no final decision, to the best of my information, has been made on the matter of General Walker. He will be given every opportunity, and those who have been critical of him will be given every opportunity to present their case. And a final decision will then be made by Mr. McNamara, who will then bring the matter to my attention, and I will then review it.
Oh, my.
So I guess we've got to take the opportunity to fully investigate and get back with him.
Right. We have to take an opportunity to take an opportunity. Yeah, he looked a little stymied by the question, didn't he? He was kind of stumbling, Eric.
Yeah.
He didn't know whether it was a suspension or, I mean, I don't know what the military term is. He was relieved of his command.
Right, but he didn't. I think that with all the flack that Truman got over MacArthur, he was probably like, oh, Jesus, I just, he didn't want this question that day. Not at that point in time. It's like, oh, so you're sacking another general.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is of all our untold stories, this is probably the greatest American untold story we're ever going to do, simply because of the word untold. It's not the greatest story. It's not, America's greatest story. It's not our greatest story, but it's the greatest America's untold story, which is General Edwin A. Walker. And this story, there's no books, there's no documentaries. I mean, his legacy is massive. It goes decade by decade, and he has been deep sixed or wormholed or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like somebody who was a president on Twitter. This guy's career has been, let's just say, erased.
Which is weird, though, and we'll go into it, because he's been represented in at least 2 or 3 movies, major movies, by major movie stars.
Right.
So it's not like he wasn't of significance somewhere.
Oh, you're right. I mean, he's huge in American pop culture. That's what I'm saying. This is not an obscure guy. This guy, like you said, this guy is featured in a bunch of films, not under his own name, but a character's name. And nobody even knows that to this day, Eric. I mean, the only reason I know it is being in the film business, having explored the background of these films, reading biographies of directors and scripts and stuff of that matter, and seeing documentation. But for instance, the first one we could put up is 7 Days in May. I mean, he's depicted by Burt Lancaster in the Fletcher Neville novel and the movie by Frankenheimer, 7 Days in May. He is General James Mattoon Scott. That's General Edwin Walker. And 7 Days in May, ironically, was a movie. There's the split. Yeah, that's great. That's great. There you see Lancaster, and there you see General Walker.
And look at, I mean, the casting is pretty
absolutely impeccable. Yeah, absolutely impeccable. Just a background a little bit on 7 Days in May, the Frankenheimer film. Kennedy loved the book. He loved the novel by Fletcher Neville, who was a former Washington Post reporter, 7 Days in May. And he actually commented about the reality of a coup d'etat against him to his brother that if I have another Bay of Pigs, it wouldn't be that far-fetched for them to try to overthrow me like depicted in the book. And the book becomes the movie, and he allows them permission to shoot in the White House. The first time this has ever happened by a president. He goes, it was in the summer, I think he went to Hyannisport and left. But they mocked up a Pentagon a little bit in the storyline. And of course, Kirk Douglas is his sidekick, Jiggs. But yeah, I mean, this was in the air. Let me just put it that way. At the time, this was in the air when this movie was made. Look at this. Miss Wilson shows up.
Speaking the history.
Maybe she's a history teacher. She's looking for new storylines for the kids, you know?
Oh yeah, and I'm you know what? I'm getting a lot of great feedback about on my polo. I'll just point it out early, and then we'll talk about it at the end as well.
Oh yeah, that we'll talk about at the end. So anyway, so here's one depiction of Walker, and then we have another depiction of Walker. If you could put that one up there, in another film where he's depicted by Sterling Hayden.
Yeah.
As General Jack D. Ripper, and of course the Stanley Kubrick classic. This is also Walker, Dr. Strangelove. Yeah,
and I mean, you can't get any more classic than Stanley Kubrick and Dr. Strangelove. I mean, good God.
Right, there he is. Yeah, that's supposedly Walker. And we're going to get into why he's depicted this way in this movie, and why he's depicted the other way in the 7 Days of May film. Now, also, he was recently depicted, and I mean recently meaning in our time, by Quentin Tarantino, who must have stumbled onto this research that I have stumbled onto, and he made a film called Inglourious Bastards. And there he is again as Brad Pitt, as the leader of this regiment, which was called the Devil's Brigade. And there was a movie made in 1968-69 called The Devil's Brigade, and it was about the creation of what would later be the Green Berets, the Devil's Brigade. Yeah, this is a Canadian-American combination of kind of like the Dirty Dozen, Eric, of Americans and Canadians, the first special force. In fact, I think it was called the Special Force Division 1 or something. It was... It later became the, there it is. There's the movie. That's William Holden, Cliff Robertson on the left, who will later depict, ironically, JFK in PT 109, which is a weird little side bit there. Carol O'Connor is in this. It's an incredible cast. But the Devil's Brigade itself, which is a true story, goes over. It's run by a guy. It's picked up by William Holden there, but it's run by a British guy named Frederick. Who was the guy, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Frederick, who was a Brit, but he brought them over to southern Italy to the Battle of Anzio. However, in 1944, it's taken over. He gets promoted to Brigadier General, Frederick, and it's the division is taken over by Edwin A. Walker. So 1944, and they land in France, and they do the same thing in France. Sabotage, like the Inglourious Bastards that you see in the film. That's who Walker was, and they, behind enemy lines. And
was that before? That was that was way before. He was a colonel back then, right?
Right.
When you took that over. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a colonel, but he then it's called the First Special Service Force. But then he goes at the end of the war. He's not done. He goes to a place called Korea and is in charge of the artillery in Korea, and he's shelling, Chinese communists. And he stumbles into something that will drive him insane the rest of his life, and that is the Chinese communist brainwashing of American POWs. This is what triggers the motivation for Edwin A. Walker in terms of his ideas being promulgated by himself and his removal from office, from his command. This disturbed him so much that when he gets assigned years later, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes, he begins to try to come up with a counter offensive against communist propaganda. And he calls that Operation Blue, to counter their red. And we'll get into that in a minute, but Operation Blue.
Like True Blue.
Yeah, like true blue. Yeah, and he puts blue with democracy and blah blah blah. But in 1955, he gets selected to become the special advisor. I don't know if special advisor is the right word, but he's the senior assistant to General Chiang Kai-shek in Taiwan. Eric, did you know this?
No, I didn't know it. I'm learning.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
an audience member today.
Oh, okay. All right. Right. This is one of the weirdest deployments he has because he's obviously not the guy's special assistant. I mean, we're doing this back channel thing against Mao, and we're backing Chiang Kai-shek, who's a general, and Madam, his wife, who comes to the United States, but they're backed into Taiwan. The reason we're doing this today, by the way, and the reason we're doing a lot of these shows in the particular order we're doing them, and I have about 150 shows that I could do, but there seems to be resonance of the story about today. And that's why I popped it into this position today, because today there's a lot of echoes of what's going on today worldwide. And that's why I moved this up to this position in our America's Untold Story lineage. There's a lot of stuff that you'll see that'll have echoes of today because, history, while it
He's got a Smedley Butler vibe going with him too.
Right. There's the Smedley Butler vibe. He's a conservative who's kind of ahead of his time, in his ideas.
Yeah, I actually found something on that. He's credited with co-creating the conservative movement.
That's true. He rubbed elbows with Buckley and John McCain. Not John McCain. What's his name?
Well,
What's
Goldwater came later.
Goldwater, I'm talking. Yeah, he rubs elbows with Goldwater, and yeah, he is one of the founders of it. And he's
Billy James Hargis.
Okay, Billy James Hargis is going to come up in a second, right? I hope you got that. That's a great part of this thing in a couple of minutes. But he gets his second star in 1957, and in the same year, he's assigned by Eisenhower against his better judgment. This is Walker's better judgment, not Eisenhower's, to bring in federal troops to Little Rock, Arkansas, to escort the Little Rock Nine, I think they're called, right, into the school. And he doesn't want to do it, but he's following the orders of his commander-in-chief, as he said. He was opposed to this, but he did the job. And he got them. There was the same thing. There was going to be a riot. It was massive crowds. It was a huge event in Little Rock. And here's the Little Rock Nine, or how many other?
Well, there's 10 in the shot, but there's 9 that are
right. Yeah, I thought there was.
I think one's their teacher, maybe.
Oh, you're right. The one from the second on the top from the right. Yeah, I think that's a teacher. So Walker. There's William. Hold on. Here's Walker on the job. Yeah, this is Walker. Well, that's obviously Rip. Yeah, this is the one we want. This is in Little Rock where he assumes command. And he gets his, the same year, gets his second star as Brigadier General. And he is not happy about it. He tells Eisenhower, but he does it anyway. And already he's starting to think that his political job is getting politicized. This is the first inkling he gets of what he perceives to be the misuse of the military for political purposes. This is a social problem, he says. We should not be involved in this. Get the police, whoever you want to use, state police. And yeah, here he is giving the marching orders to how this is going to roll out.
And as you said, he got his second star that year.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah. And I mean, this guy was revered as a fighting general, Eric, as you know about some of these fighting generals. This guy, his men would have, done anything to help him or go behind him. So he felt humiliated by having to do this social engineering project for Eisenhower. He will later turn against Eisenhower, hinting that even Eisenhower is a pinko. And this is where the pink comes in, from pinko. About this time, the pinko pink thing comes in, is in the middle between red and blue.
Yeah, you're not a full-on commie, but
right.
A coward.
Right. So he now gets assigned in 1959. He gets assigned by the same President Eisenhower to the 24th Infantry Division in Augsburg, Germany. Now you say, well, what's with the 24th? Why is that important? Okay. The 24th is the tip of the spear against the Soviets if they make a run on Berlin. These men are all going to die. Their job is to hold off the Soviets as long as humanly possible through what's known as the Fulda Gap. The Fulda Gap was between two mountain ranges. I think even Napoleon had come through the Fulda Gap, down to the Rhine River to Frankfurt. And his job, this Walker job of the 24th, was to hold off Soviet tank divisions. Technically, getting into some battle technical stuff here, but it's true. His job was to somehow, in the Fulda Gap, stop for as long as humanly possible. They're obviously, they all know they're cannon fodder, until we could back up with, military backup and get our troops in there. And he says, all right, I'm going to do that. And this is when he creates Project Blue. This is really where he creates Project Blue. Now, Project Blue is Walker teaching right-wing conservative values to the men. He believes the men don't know what they're fighting for. They're all there. Elvis Presley's there. Germany. It's like a big lark, a post-war lark, where you're in the military in 1960, 61, 59. He wants to teach the men the psychological patriotism that they will fight for against the Soviets and the Chinese. And he begins Project Blue with films, with brochures, with books. You might have some of the books and some of the John Birch Society stuff. He's one of the original members of the John Birch Society, by the way. Yeah, this is when he was muzzled. These are books by him. They're kind of bigger pamphlets than books, but Walker has the men watch these films and gives these presentations in the mess hall where they have a projector, and he begins to show them how to vote for Goldwater. He brings in the actual ballots, Eric, to show them who to vote for on their overseas mail-in military ballots. And that's when the military, when Kennedy comes after him. That's what you saw at the beginning, was the result of him Walker instructing them how to vote for Barry Goldwater. You know what I mean?
Well, you did want to go over what he actually was doing over there, right? With
Okay, yeah, I'm going to get to that 1 second. Just give me 1 second, and we'll get to this. Now,
cool.
What happens is he begins to preach John Birch Society stuff, and the climate is almost exactly the same as today, where Kennedy is saying there are right-wing fanatics who are out of their minds that need to be banned from the media. They cannot have a platform. You could literally read the statements from the White House in 1960, 61, and it reads like it's today. He gives a speech at the Hollywood Palladium, JFK, here, saying these are people who say our water is treated with fluoride. These are psychos. It sounds exactly like today. And that's why I wanted to run this episode, because Walker is not far off. There are communists in the State Department, just like McCarthy says. Walker says the same thing. The government is riddled with communists, and they're eating away at our military. And he's removed. He's removed from his command. But to step back, like you said, he had access to this door, if you could show that door. And Kennedy will comment upon it later, the one you just said. Okay, this is the nuclear device room that's in behind that door.
NBC is nuclear, biological, chemical.
Right. Now, the key is biological, which is not mentioned in this story. And I don't know about the biological, but I do know about the nuclear.
Well, NBC is a category. I'm just letting you know. So it would be the NBC room. It may have nuke, it may have biological, it may have chemical, but it's part of that department, if you will.
Right, I understand, but I'm saying I've never read about any biological being over there. I have read, and we're going to show the nuke part. So the nuke part is a thing called the Davy Crockett, which is a tactical field nuclear weapon based on the Alamo, which is kind of what he's doing. He's a Texan at the Alamo. And this device, it's a small, not so small, but small compared to a hydrogen bomb. That's a gun that shoots this tactical nuclear field weapon at the enemy, which he was going to use in the Fulda Gap to stop the Soviet tanks. That's what Walker's plan was. And in that room were the Davy Crockett's. these nuclear tactical devices, which we're now hearing echoes of in the Ukraine situation about
we have
What's that?
we have them now. It's technically discharged uranium or depleted uranium, but we do already have anti-tank missiles. So this is like a precursor to a lot of that.
Right. I don't know if you there's some testing of it. It looks like a small nuclear cloud. It looks I don't know if you have the video, but maybe we'll put it in episode 2. This may be a 2-part episode, folks, because there's so much on Walker.
No, I guarantee it's going to be 2.
Okay, yeah, we got to go on Friday. Oh, here it is. Take a look at this. Take a look at this. Okay, here's the battlefield plan I found on the atomic weapon test clip. And you'll see, it looks like where he is. I mean, there's like a gap there. That's Bobby Kennedy, by the way, who was sent by his brother to watch the testing of this Davy Crockett. These are all Army men forced to watch it with goggles. There's Bobby Kennedy on the extreme right. There's the test guy. There's some, obviously.
This is where testing this crap actually here.
By the way, this is near where Eric is from. This is Yuma, Arizona, by the way.
It was set for a low height of burst. It detonated perfectly, releasing its lethal radiation.
Right. So you have an explosion part, the lethal radiation.
Like any other
part.
Nuclear weapon, the Davy.
Oh, right. Okay. So you have a 3-part weapon there with heat, radiation, and explosion, and it's pretty effective, Eric.
Well,
I mean, look at that.
I think if it hits a tank, they're dead. I mean,
well, I think they want to hit more than one tank with this thing. They want to block that pass. That's the key to what Walker is there for. Is to block that pass from the tanks, the Russian tanks or the Soviet tanks coming through into Frankfurt and into West Germany. Okay, so this is his job. Absolutely loving all your work. Best podcast out there. Keep it up. Okay, thank you. So he is assigned this thing. He gets removed in that press conference you see, and what he does is he comes back to the United States and resigns his commission in the the U.S. Army and resigns. He gets rid of even his pension is gone, right? Mm-hmm. So he now says I can speak freely and politically about what I want to do with the John Birch Society and conservative politics, and he begins to hobnob with all of these. Yeah, here he is. Yeah, that's on the cover of Newsweek. This was a big deal at the time, folks. This did not exist before General Walker. He hooks himself up with Southern conservative Democrats. He's a Democrat, by the way. He's not a Republican. He is a conservative Democrat out of Texas. His arch nemesis is Lyndon Baines Johnson, who he despises as a corrupt politician. He hates LBJ, and he says that he is going to help bring back American values and stop the communist menace that is perpetrating the United States at the time.
All right. David March has every second lieutenant in the Army needs a tactical nuclear weapon.
Well, it's funny because there's a statement by RFK a number of years later where he says, literally says, the reason field commanders have no authority over tactical nuclear weapons was because of people like General Walker. That's when they took it away. They did have some access to it. Walker did, and that was removed after Walker. So yeah, that's he took away the fun of everybody. Well, he begins to hook up with a guy named Reverend Billy James Hargis. And Reverend Billy James Hargis is a right-wing conservative evangelical preacher. There he is. There's Hargis. I think he weighed about 300 pounds, by the way. And they went on this bus tour called Operation Midnight Ride, where they went around the country. Hargis would preach, Yankee stadiums and municipal halls and stuff. And then Walker would come out and give a speech. Became a tandem. They actually made a lot of money. They sold a lot of tickets doing it. They did radio shows together. Walker published those books that you showed, those 3 different pamphlets.
Yep, a la Smedley Butler.
Smedley Butler. Yep.
I mean, going around doing a lecture, having a tour, publishing a book.
Now there's another publication, which is y'all a treasure, y'all. All right, James Watson. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Okay, so there's another publication that was a forerunner to a publication I worked at that latched onto Walker and started to see some humor in Walker, Eric. And they did
yeah.
So this publication did like a fold out gate at the end of the last page. I don't know if you remember, they had a tri-fold thing, and they did one on Walker with it, which had a nuclear cloud.
Al Jaffe actually did it, and he's still alive, by the way, and he's the longest working artist in history.
Right on. So here's the magazine I'm talking about, Mad Magazine. I couldn't find the gatefold. I have it somewhere in storage. The fold out, it folds into a nuclear mushroom cloud. It's really well done. But what happens here is Walker writes this letter to a guy at the FBI named Jake Hoover and says that this publication is subversive, communist, and needs to be investigated by the FBI because they were going after Walker. A number of issues of Mad Magazine at the time was making fun of Walker, and he was not having it. So that's kind of interesting. So he goes to a hearing. This is kind of cool. He goes to congressional hearings explaining what happened in Germany. Goes to these huge congressional hearings. I mean, bright lights, the whole bit. And he's under the lights. He's being grilled, and he's got his allies. Keep in mind, he has a lot of friends in Congress. He has a lot of friends who are Southern Democrats who are backing him. So this is not a man out on a limb, but the people on the left find him to be the most dangerous man in America, not unlike a recent presidential guy that we won't name. He was that, and I hate to use the word radioactive, but he was that radioactive. And so he goes before this congressional committee, reads a speech, and they're grilling him, blah, blah, blah. And he leaves, and there's a guy outside, Thomas Kelly. I think he worked for a publication called the Washington Examiner. Publication doesn't exist anymore. It wasn't the Post. It was Washington something or other. And he asks him quite nicely, how do you feel about being endorsed by George Lincoln Rockwell, the head of the American Nazi Party, right? Which, is one of these things like, what's his name, who endorsed Trump, like.
One of those setups where Richard Spencer.
With Spencer, but also there were some other previous guys who used to do it too.
It's like the endorsement is like, just because somebody endorses the person doesn't mean they accept the endorsement. It's like,
right. Okay. So Walker's response was quick and swift. He punched him in the face and knocked him unconscious in the halls of Congress and walked right over his body. And I swear to God, and there's photos of it. I'll find you the photos. There's some photos of it, and Kelly doesn't press charges, so Walker just punches him in the face, knocks him out. And I have a photo in one of my albums of Kelly with a black eye the next day from Walker. We'll find it for episode 2. I know I have it somewhere. So this is a violent guy. This is not a guy. He's at a women's luncheon in Dallas for George Wallace, the governor of Alabama, who's raising money in Texas, right? Mm-hmm. And George Wallace is speaking, and Walker is sitting at a table with a bunch of women. These tables everywhere, and there's white linen tablecloth, and a cameraman, a film cameraman, comes up to him and starts filming him from the side. You know what I mean? While this event is going on, he just starts filming him with a handheld, I think it's 8mm camera. And he was a news guy, a TV news guy locally. There was no sound. It was just, I guess he wanted some B-roll. So Walker gets up, grabs the guy by the throat, throws him against all the dishes against the wall, and just starts pounding the piss out of the guy. While Wallace is speaking, and then he gets a round of applause from the ladies. And they drag the guy out. And this is at the auditorium in Dallas. Another violent incident by Walker.
Oh, my God. Del Rio McAllen, thank you so much.
Okay, let me get back to my storytelling, because I want to go back to Augsburg, Germany. Augsburg, Germany, the 24th Infantry, what they were known for every year was having these 8 guys or 6 win the European Rifle Championship. as marksmen and sharpshooters. This was the best we had, not just in a division. This was the entire United States Army winning the championship every year against European armies, Eric. Okay? So they had to not only defeat our own army, they would go up and win against the French and the British and everyone else. Okay. So the 24th under Walker would win this thing every year. And that's going to come into play later in the story. I just wanted to put that out there, that this was essentially a rifle sharpshooting regiment. That was what their specialty was, in terms of notoriety, the 24th Infantry. Okay. We're going to bring that back later on when we get into some other items in episode 2.
There's a lot coming, everybody. Just bear with us.
Bear with us. There's a lot more. We just can't fit it all in today. So, okay. He goes back to Texas, where he's from, and all of a sudden they do one of these integration things again. And it's in Ole Miss, where James Meredith, the legendary Air Force, former Air Force member, there he is. There's James Meredith. He was an Air Force veteran, was trying to enroll in the University of Mississippi, aka Ole Miss, on the campus of Ole Miss, and he ran into some trouble there. This is in 1962. So the Walker group, which is in Texas, the cry goes out. The governor of Mississippi was a guy named Bennett, and Walker is asked to show up, not to help Meredith get in, but to prevent Meredith from getting in. The opposite of what he had done under Eisenhower. He now shows up, and there's thousands of people there, U.S. Marshals, all kinds of tension in the air, the whole town. The Kennedys send down, here's the U.S. Marshals, but this is the next day. Let me just back up, because the night before that, a full-fledged riot breaks out. 35 federal marshals are shot. A French reporter is assassinated, shot in the back of the head by one guy. Another guy is shot and killed. They take a flaming bulldozer. They start the engine, jump off, and plow the bulldozer into the dormitory building, where inside a cowering James Meredith is hiding with the FBI and the U.S. Marshals in a dormitory. They've got the room surrounded, and he's in there overnight as a student now. And they're taking flaming automobiles and putting them in neutral and sending them into the building. There's snipers there, Eric. They're shooting at the Marshals. The 101st Airborne Division is sent in by the Kennedys. And there in the middle of the entire debacle, in the middle of the riot, in the middle of the fiery inferno of that night, is former General Edwin A. Walker with a bullhorn and saying, this cannot stand. We cannot allow this to happen. And the whole place goes crazy. He literally is called an insurrectionist. He's called for treason. They say that he started this riot in a building where they went in, and it sounds very familiar to an event on the 6th day of January, as you recall.
Sounds familiar, but is it completely escalated way beyond the 6th of January in every way?
Okay, right. Yeah, because of the people shot and people killed. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. However, the language that the White House uses, again, this is where, the reason I'm mentioning it, this is where they got the language for January 6th, was from this insurrection, as they called it at the time in the Kennedy White House. This is where it came from. This is where they said that this guy was an insurrectionist, that this was sedition, and this was treason. Now, show that photo you just showed, and you'll see this. This is fine. This is the 101st Airborne Division arresting General Walker at bayonet point. At bayonet point. He's arrested for insurrection, sedition, and treason. Okay.
Look at this guy here. He's terrified of him.
Yeah, there's a lot. Actually,
a lot of side eyes.
They purposely put that black guy there to humiliate him. They took the black kid and they put him in the front line to really humiliate Walker. Now, this situation here had escalated to such a point where the Kennedys said, we got to do something with this guy, because it's kind of like Alex Jones with a bullhorn at the insurrection, right? It was kind of like, like Bannon. That's how they looked at this guy. And what they did was, and I know the audience is going to find this hard to believe, so I'm just going to tell you the truth, and you could look it up on your own in your own time or your own, Robert Kennedy, as Attorney General of the United States, had him sent to Springfield, Missouri, to a federal mental institution, federal prison with a mental institution in a straitjacket, where he was committed to 90 days in a mental institution as an arrest. Okay. He's then given the 552 question Minnesota multiphasic personality test, the same one that was given to Sirhan in our previous episode, where the craziest questions on earth are asked of him from the test. Do you eat your own feces? Do you speak to demons? There's all these crazy questions in there. And he's in a straitjacket. The doctor who does it is told by the Kennedys to do this. Thousands of letters are written by other doctors who sign like a Balfour Declaration saying we can't commit American citizens to psychiatric institutions like the Soviets do. It becomes an incredible, massive publicity mistake by the Kennedys. So he's still under arrest, though. You could hear the sirens taking him away at this time. And that's just some added audio effects we put in for the.
Hey, you know what? We've done it on both sides. We've had sirens on my microphone. We've had sirens on yours. We've got a real spatial consideration.
Right.
Here.
This is, like War of the Worlds. We have to add all these sound effects.
That's right.
So he is locked up in Springfield, Missouri, in this mental institution, and there begins to become a cry to release him by doctors, by the psychiatrists, and the AMA and the ACLU comes out and backs him, saying we can't do this. And he says, this is what the Soviets do. So he puts up half the bail money, which is $350,000 to get out, Eric. $350,000 to get out of that Springfield, Missouri institution. He later sues the Associated Press for declaring him an insurrectionist in their papers. He wins the lawsuit. He's awarded millions of dollars by the lower courts. It goes to the Supreme Court of the United States and is overturned the punitive damages, saying, you're a public figure, and unless there's malice, you can't win any punitive damages. And that becomes the current law today that you see involved with Project Veritas today. That ruling against Walker, reversing the lower court ruling, stands to this day about public figures and malice. So when he gets released, he flies back to Love Field, right, in Dallas, where he's greeted by hundreds of thousands of well-wishers. And the cry begins for him to run for governor of Texas.
That's right, governor. And then later, yeah, sorry.
What's that?
That's his presidential run. Sorry.
Well, yeah, no, they're just projecting into the future, right? This is the people there. But he throws his hat into the ring, and he's backed to the hilt by a guy whose name will come up later in episode 2, H.L. Hunt, the billionaire who is funding all of these right-wing causes, who's anti-Kennedy. Now, Walker has a bone to pick with JFK, who has...
Big one.
And what's that?
A big one.
Yeah, he has a big bone to pick with JFK and his brother, RFK, who has put him in the mental institution. I mean, this is, not something where he's, making this up. I mean, these are his arch nemesis now. Anyway, so he runs for governor of Texas, and H.L. Hunt gives him like a lesson on how to deal with the media, and he puts money into his campaign, but he's defeated. He's defeated in the race by a guy named Lyndon's Boy. And Lyndon's Boy, as the media calls him, is John Connally. And John Connally becomes the governor of the great state of Texas.
All right. Jeff K., thank you very much.
There's no more Republican and Democrats, Jeff K. That's all gone, bro. You're living in the 90s. Welcome to the New World Order. Anyway, so he loses that race, right? But again, he's made a name for himself on the national stage, and he has a lot of enemies, Walker, now. Far more enemies than he had before. And now he's trying to become, hook in with the Buckleys, trying to hook in with Barry Goldwater, and also the John Birch Society. So here's another twist. he's sent by the CIA to train anti-Castro Cubans before a thing called the Bay of Pigs. What? Yeah. A little known story. I was going to surprise you with this one. He's down there with a guy, and this is going to come into play in episode 2. He's down there in a place called New Orleans, my friend, and he's helping a guy named David Ferry. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. Train anti-Castro Cubans to take back the island in soon to be the Bay of Pigs debacle. So he is involved now with the Central Intelligence Agency. He's, an American citizen. He's not affiliated with the Army legally, but there are men who come with him from Augsburg, Germany, his men who revere him. They get out of the Army and they become his little circle in Turtle Creek outside of Dallas, where he lives. They become his henchmen. And these are guys who are 24 years old, and they form a thing called CUSA, Conservative USA. And it's a guy named Robert Surrey. It's a guy named Larry Schmidt, Norman Baker. And these were his men. In June of 62, they come back with him, and they become his henchmen and do his bidding.
And they all probably can shoot really well.
Yes, yes, they are marksmen, my friend. And I don't mean a guy in a Texas School Book Depository with a $10 rifle. These are the best we have in the United States. So we're going to get into this in episode 2. I don't want to tip too much of it in episode 1. He gets out, and there's some footage of Walker being given a Stetson by a guy at another event at the Memorial Auditorium. I don't know if you have that piece of footage by...
I do. It's very, very poor. Hang on.
I just want to point out who's giving him the award or whatever he's getting there.
Yeah, somebody's criticizing me. Let's see. Yes, I was in the military. Do you know how many jobs there are in the military, Cobb? Guess which one I wasn't. Artillery. Thank you, though.
I don't know what that means, but I don't know if you have that video. I'd like to see if you...
Yeah.
Here it is. Okay, go ahead. Roll it.
It is my pleasure and privilege, General Walker, to present to you with all of the emoluments and the privileges of honorary citizenship in this great city of Dallas. Some years now, and in order to make you feel completely at home and to re-indoctrinate him into the habits of living here in Texas, a strictly hill country hat to General Walker.
Now, this guy's all hat and cattle. A year from now,
true.
they're going to give the same hat in Fort Worth, Texas, to John F. Kennedy. And he says he doesn't put the hat on. He says, if you want to see me wear the hat, come to the White House on Monday, and I'll put it on for you. And the crowd laughs because it's kind of funny because JFK never wore a hat. Monday never came, of course, and nobody ever got to see the hat. But the guy giving him that hat is the mayor of Dallas, Earl Cabell. And his brother, General Cabell, was fired by JFK and as the second in command of the CIA under Allen Dulles. So here's the mayor who later on his deathbed, when he was dying, revealed, and also posthumously was revealed, was an employee of the Central Intelligence Agency. That Cabell, and his brother is the General Cabell, who was fired with Allen Dulles by JFK. So you're now seeing the merger of General Walker with Mayor Cabell of Dallas. Now, why is Mayor Cabell important? Mayor Cabell changes the parade route and has to do the dog leg to go underneath the school book depository. Now that's going to play out in episode 2. You're beginning to see a connection between anti-Castro Cubans and General Walker and the Minutemen, and also his group in Texas, which is a John Birch Society-based group. There's also the Minutemen there. And he takes under his wing the most virulent military wing of the anti-Castro Cubans. And we're going to get into this in more detail in episode 2. It's an organization called Alpha 66. Alpha 66 was the militant wing of the anti-Castro Cubans in this country. These were the guys who tried to kill Kennedy in Chicago, who showed up at that hotel. When we covered that in a previous episode, that was revealed by Abraham Bolden, the first black Secret Service agent who was imprisoned under false charges because he busted out that plot in Chicago. The Bolden family, of course, one of the most prominent African-American families to this day in Chicago. Bolden was railroaded into prison because he stumbled onto that plot in Chicago to kill Kennedy there. That was Alpha 66. Alpha 66 now becomes a merger with Walker, and Walker starts attending Alpha 66 meetings along with another guy who's doing some undercover work named Lee Harvey Oswald. Wow. Some dots, folks. There's some dots here, my friends. You're beginning to see the long shadow of Edwin A. Walker. And let me tell you something. He casts a giant shadow on American culture, politically, militarily, and through these assassination storylines. This guy is a key linchpin to all kinds of threads on that board of serial killers with the thread, Eric, whatever that circular thing is that they put up there, the FBI. In the middle of this thing is Edwin A. Walker. And we're going to find out in the next episode who and why there is an assassination attempt on Edwin A. Walker. And you have that shot of him with the coffee cup. I mean, we could kind of tease that out when he's in his house. We'll get into it a little bit more. You had a photo of him.
I've got that. I've got an interview with him after.
Here he is. This is post after the assassination attempt. This is April 1963. Somebody or a group of men tried to assassinate Walker in his house in Turtle Creek. The shot literally, I mean, he got shrapnel in his arm. The shot missed him by an inch, went through the wall into the next room, and blah, blah, blah. He survived, and he tried to milk this thing politically to great effect. Yeah, he milked it politically, and nobody mentions anything about anybody doing it. All investigations by Dallas police go nowhere. There was a kid who was 14 years old, this kid who was next door in a church. He saw two men in a black Chevrolet, 1957 Chevy, drive down the alleyway and escape after the shooting. And that black Chevy will end up in a photo in the back of Walker's house. That car will be parked, and the license plate will be cut out of the photo by the Dallas police after certain events. Yes, because I have a photo of it with the license plate before the Dallas police get the photo. So that car belonged to somebody that the Dallas police did not want to be known. And that is part of the mystery of all of this stuff wrapped in a riddle inside of an enigma.
And we're just getting started. Thank you again, JM.
Hey, Jay, thanks. I'm a professional. Don't worry. Nobody's going to get hurt. The situation with Walker begins to become a little bit odd when his men take out two ads funded by H.L. Hunt. One is welcome to Dallas, Mr. Kennedy. And the other one is wanted for treason. I don't know if you have it. Yeah, this is taken out by Walker and his men upon the arrival, the week of Kennedy's arrival in Dallas. This is not your typical group of men. They put this wanted for treason signs and on billboards and in the papers. And this is written by his men, Surrey and Schmidt and these cats from Germany with him. And it's funded by the Hunts, by H.L. Hunt and Bunker Hunt, by the way. I don't know if you have the other one. Welcome to Dallas, Mr. President. There's an additional one. The other one was a full-page ad in the Dallas Morning News that Jack Ruby sees. It's signed by Bernard Weissman. Welcome, Mr. Kennedy, to Dallas. Yeah, and that's the American Fact-Finding Committee. It doesn't exist. They made it up. These guys who placed the ad along with Bernard Weissman, the thing that sets off Ruby, according to Ruby, is that it's signed by a Jewish name, Bernard Weissman, who's a real guy. Bernard Weissman was part of the crew in Germany. Bernard Weissman was one of the men who surrounded Walker, the young men. So they put this ad out, and we're going to get into this next week about what happens to these men in the conspiracy, because they are caught up in this thing, these young men, and there's a lot of meat on that bone that's never been resolved, even by me. So, man, it's a crazy ride, and no one's ever gotten into Walker because I think it's too close to home. They're the men. There they are, my friends. These are the conspirators. These are Walker's men, and I think that is Schmidt, Robert Surrey, and Norman Baker. And these guys were the founders and creators of Conservative USA, which was the beginning of the real conservative movement out of Texas at the time. And these guys were hardcore and knew how to shoot, and they knew how to do things. Let me just put it that way. They got caught up in this thing and barely got out alive themselves. Well, I don't even know if they got out alive, so we'll get into that.
All right, and
I'll just add one more little tidbit. Walker had a bridge game at his house every week. They played bridge, and one of the guys who played bridge with Walker and his team, you can't make this up, was FBI agent James Hosty. Sorry. Very sorry. So, I mean, wait till you see what happens the next step. We're going to do this on Friday, right, Eric? Unless we got, this is keyed up. I mean, I got all the information now, and I don't know how you want to end this episode, but I think this might be a good place to get out, with some promotional consideration.
Absolutely.
I hope you got some dots out of that, dude. If this doesn't give you some dots for next week, I mean,
stay tuned to Friday, Roosevelt.
Stay tuned to Friday, Roosevelt, because all
more to come. Just more to come. We can't go into
get
that.
into it today. It's too complicated, really. At this point, it really is very complicated in terms of my storytelling version of what happened there.
So this means that they probably should subscribe if they want to.
No,
I'm
turning on them. No, we're not even accepting subscribers anymore. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to use reverse logic on these knuckleheads. No more subscribing. You're done. You're out. No more subscribers allowed. But look, who am I? I can't. I'm in the 90s. Jeff Kennedy says pics of him there the day or day. What's he saying now?
Oh, wait.
Here you take on
Herbert.
This
Herbert Walker Bush. Yeah. We'll get.
All you 90s guys. Yeah, he becomes the head of the CIA in episode 19. So you'll see that happen.
Yeah, it's coming up.
There's a confluence of events coming to Dallas that is coming from the Cubans. It's coming from all kinds of elements, to converge here. And, part of it, people mentioned the 112th Military Intelligence Unit, which was disbanded, I think, in the 1990s, by the way. They were told to stand down by a military guy that they never revealed. And I believe the 112th Military Intelligence Unit was told to stand down by Edwin Walker.
Thank you. I wonder as I wander. Interesting on OKC. I don't know if we're doing it. I will tell you that Robert Barnes has done a hush on that.
Yeah, Barnes has it.
Follow Viva Barnes Law. Locals.com. I don't know if we're going to cover because it's really not untold.
Yeah,
I mean, there might be elements of it, but it's pretty covered.
It's not my thing. Yeah, I'm looking for really untold stories for this channel. There's stuff like Walker, stuff like Smedley Butler. I mean, if it's been told, I really, I'm glad it's out there, but I don't want to, go that route.
So yeah, some things have been told that we'll cover, but they generally bridge other elements. So it's like, or there are elements of it that haven't been told or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
I don't know.
All right. So let me see what else. Okay. People were asking about the shirt.
Wow.
I kept telling people that we have polos.
Wow. That's an amazing looking shirt, Mr. Hunley. How can I get one? I'm just a person who's watching the show.
Well, if you happen to look at the bottom of the show, there is merchandise available now.
No.
And that includes polos. That also includes tank tops and like running shirts. It's getting hotter. And
you said off camera that the lingerie is back ordered because of supply chain problems. Is that true?
I think
you're saying this, that the Chinese.
It's not really that, and we need to come clean, Mark. We're having problems because you keep going through the fittings with the models. And
Look,
someday you're going to have to
I've been one of
finish.
those models. I know what it's like to be a young male model with all the ambition and then have it crushed out of you by forces that you can't control.
Well, okay, and so you will keep testing, keep fitting, and making sure that everything fits correctly, and there's no chafing or any other problems with the model crew. Correct?
That's correct. And I'll tell you something, you may not subscribe, but I'm not going to block you from subscribing. And I'm not going to block you from PayPaling me either at the address listed below. I totally encourage every American watching this show. If you want to see episode 2, you're going to have to PayPal me. I'm holding you hostage. If I don't receive, I don't know, some X amount of PayPal, you're not getting episode 2. I've had it with you people.
Or Venmo, or you could always.
It could be Venmo. I don't care. I don't care.
Or there's
somebody sent me a Barnes and Noble gift card to my mailbox in Arizona. So I got to drive to Arizona to get the gift card, but I completely love that.
That's pretty cool.
See, a lot of this is about rare books. Like, I'll give you an example. The Lord Buckley book, when we do Lord Buckley, these books are like, when you go to find them, they're like $275 on eBay because they're rare books. So, I mean, I'm joking around, but that's my world. You know what I mean? I have to save up all my pennies to get these books because I'm an addict and I have to go to book rehab, but they're just out of print rare books. I mean, the Buckley one is one I'm trying to get. I mean, it's on my mind. So that's one thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of these, God, I mean, you've actually put up some of them in PDF format that are near impossible to find.
Those are extremely valuable hardcover books. They're in PDF format, but they're free to locals members, right? If behind the Iron Curtain there.
Yep.
I also put up 7. I have more. I'll put up more. 7 of the love letters from Ruth Paine to Marina Oswald, 7 unanswered, literally in 3 weeks. She sends letter after letter after letter, top secret. It says right on top of the letters. Some of you locals people obviously have seen them already. I put them up yesterday at the request of a viewer, and they're fascinating to read. Ruth Paine tries every single angle to get Marina Oswald to contact her to no avail, because the Secret Service tells Marina Oswald that Ruth Paine works for the CIA and not to contact her. And that's from the Secret Service. So Marina Oswald does not contact her. But I will put up the earlier love letters from the summer where they're writing back and forth to each other. And you might like those. You might like those.
So you start with the unrequited love.
Paine, what's that?
You start with the unrequited love, and then
right. Well, that was the posting. Ruth Paine, just so you know, when the Dallas police seized her file and her husband's file cabinets, and they found all the index cards in there of every pro-Castro Cuban student in Dallas and pro-Castro sympathizers in Dallas, they also seized her projector, her Kodak projector, and her collection of 8mm lesbian films that the Dallas police had to watch at the station house. They had to watch them. And she went crazy to get those back, and she did get them back. And she did go crazy with the Warren Commission to get the love letters back, and she got those back too. But they were already recorded by the Warren Commission as copies. So, but she did get the originals back, and she fought like a tiger to get both the lesbian films and the love letters back. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying for historical purposes.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and, there's just so much meat. It's just insane. It's just totally insane. Nobody's ever really published this stuff that Eric and I are doing. So we want to make a permanent record of every single one of these characters having their own episode. We're going to do George de Mohrenschildt. We're going to do Wesley Buell Frazier. We already did Ruth Paine. We did Ruby. We're going to pick apart each person, even if they're minor, and put their connection to this thing in a record that's, going to be at the bottom of the channel that you could look at whenever you want.
Yep. There's already playlists there. And as things roll in, we will keep adding to it.
Right.
And people are asking about a 420 episode tomorrow. No, we will not be. I should be doing a news show tomorrow at 9 p.m.
You mean Hitler's birthday?
Yeah. It's that. It's also another holiday. But don't worry, Johnny Depp is still testifying. He's probably stoned.
And you know who likes that holiday is Elon Musk, apparently. So that's
Yes, including his bid, which happened to be 54.20.
right. That's why I mentioned it. Yeah. And then he was on with Rogan inhaling, apparently, from what I saw.
Yep.
The SEC doesn't like that. I don't know why. It's such a weird disconnect. I mean, it's legal everywhere. He goes on Rogan and smokes some, and everybody goes batshit crazy.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, we're still confused.
I have the biggest coffee cup in YouTube history. I just want to show you.
Yeah, we've heard about your soup bowl. All right, well, folks.
Friday. 2:30 LA time.
Pacific.
5:30 Eastern. Part 2, General Walker, The Reckoning.
Be there.